"Get inside now. The tornado is coming," the old woman cried. Days later, 300 bikers changed her life. The sky turned an eerie shade of green that afternoon in rural Oklahoma, a sickly, unnatural hue that made the hairs on Martha Collins' arms stand on end. At 67, she'd seen her share of storms, but this one felt different. The air crackled with tension, and the wind howled like a wounded animal. She was about to descend into her reinforced storm cellar when she saw them, nearly 80 Hell's Angels, their leather vests flapping in the gale, motorcycles scattered across her field like fallen soldiers. Her heart pounded. These were men with skulls on their backs and tattoos that told stories she didn't want to know. But then she heard it. The deafening roar of an EF4 tornado tearing through the horizon, closer by the second. "Get inside now!" she screamed, her voice cutting through the chaos. "There's room!" Without hesitation, she ushered them into her cellar. Strangers with chains and scars, some limping, one bleeding from a gash on his temple. His name was Derek. As the tornado shrieked above, shaking the earth like God himself was angry, Martha pressed clean cloth to Derek's wound, her hands steady despite her trembling soul. When silence finally returned, they emerged to devastation. Her home, her sanctuary since her husband passed, was reduced to splinters. But amid the wreckage, she found one thing intact: a faded photograph of her son, Danny, in his army uniform, smiling like he knew a secret the world wasn't ready for. He died in Afghanistan 20 years ago, and the military had given her a folded flag and vague condolences. She'd spent 2 decades wondering if she'd ever understand why. Then Iron Kane stepped forward, the club's president, a mountain of a man with eyes that held both fire and sorrow. He stared at the photo, then at Martha. "I knew him," he said quietly. "Danny saved my life over there before he died." He paused, jaw tight. "There's more to his story than they told you. I'll be back with the truth." Martha didn't sleep that night, not because of the loss, but because hope, fragile and fierce, had flickered back to life. True to his word, Iron returned a week later. Over coffee brewed on a camp stove beside her ruined porch, he revealed the unthinkable. Danny hadn't just died in combat, he'd been betrayed. A sergeant named Carl Whitmore had sold intel to insurgents for profit, and Danny discovered it. Rather than stay silent, he gathered evidence, and rather than run, he stayed behind to protect his unit during extraction, knowing it would cost him his life. He was a hero, Iron said, voice thick, but they buried the truth to protect a corrupt chain of command. Martha's grief transformed into resolve. She wouldn't seek revenge, but justice, truth for Danny. As she began her quest, something miraculous unfolded. The bikers didn't leave. Instead, they rolled up their sleeves. Day after day, they rebuilt her home, hammering walls, laying floors, planting flowers where rubble once lay. They shared stories of Danny, how he'd shared his rations with local children, how he'd written letters to grieving families back home, how he'd once carried a wounded enemy soldier to safety because war doesn't erase humanity. Her skeptical neighbor, Mrs. Langley, who'd always whispered about those rough men, watched in stunned silence as Duke, one of the gentlest giants Martha had ever met, fixed her fence without being asked. When a slick developer showed up offering pennies for her land, claiming it was uninhabitable, it was Iron who stood beside Martha, arms crossed, simply saying, "She's not selling." With the bikers as her unexpected family, Martha found courage she didn't know she had. Her journey led to Nevada, to a gated community where Carl Whitmore lived in luxury funded by blood money. With Iron and Duke at her side, she confronted him, not with rage, but with calm clarity. She laid out what she knew, showing him photos of Danny, reading excerpts from letters he'd written. Carl's facade crumbled. In front of neighbors and news cameras drawn by rumors of scandal, he broke down and confessed everything. Justice, Martha realized, wasn't always handcuffs and prison bars. Sometimes it was truth spoken aloud, loud enough that the world couldn't ignore it. Federal investigators unearthed Danny's hidden files, encrypted journals, coordinates, recorded conversations. The cover-up unraveled. Whitmore was arrested. The Pentagon issued a formal apology to Martha, and Danny's name was posthumously honored with a medal long overdue. But the greatest gift came on a quiet evening months later. The Hells Angels held a ceremony in her rebuilt backyard. Iron handed her a custom patch, black with silver stitching, bearing Danny's name and the words, "Guardian Angel." "You're one of us now," he said, placing it gently in her hands. "Not because of what we did for you, but because of the heart you showed us when we needed it most." Tears streamed down Martha's face as she pinned it to her sweater. She wasn't just Danny's mother anymore. She was sister, protector, and beacon to a brotherhood forged in storm and salvation. Today, Martha runs a small outreach center for veterans and displaced families, funded in part by anonymous donations from a motorcycle club that believes in second chances. She tells Danny's story, not as a tragedy, but as a testament to courage, compassion, and the unexpected families that find us when we need them most. If you believe in kindness, in redemption, in the power of one act of bravery to ripple across decades, then share this story. Because sometimes the people we fear the most are the ones who teach us how to hope again. And remember, you never know whose life you'll change by simply opening your door. Thanks for watching.